Hey everyone, it's Rich here, CEO and founder of Vergo, to talk about our cost projections and WIP feature, which is one of our modules, which obviously is focused on streamlining project managers' workflows, so making their lives as easy as possible to do those monthly cost projections, which in turn helps the finance team with that dreaded WIP report, which obviously takes up so much time of everyone's life on a monthly basis. So jumping into really kind of the problems that we're looking to solve here, we interviewed over 100 CFOs and controllers in the construction industry to really try and understand what was so annoying and painful about the way that cost projections and WIP reports are done today. And the biggest problem was actually just how clunky the ERPs are to kind of make project managers' life easy to provide a cost projection. So we heard about open commitments and the remaining commitment on those. We heard about change orders that have maybe are in pending status, but they're likely to get approved, and just how many clicks and reports will have to be pulled from your ERP for the project manager to be armed with everything they need to say, this is how much more we're going to spend on the project. And that was fascinating for us, and we realized that whatever solution we built had to be like extremely easy for a project manager to use and just have everything in one place, which I'm excited to show you how we built it. The second one is actually believing the cost projections that project managers have provided. So obviously we've heard a lot about sandbagging. So do we really believe that this project manager estimate is correct, or do we actually think that they're overestimating? So one of the problems, which I think is linked to the first one, is if it's easy for the project manager to do cost projections, the likelihood that they actually provide accurate information is obviously higher. And if we give the visibility to the finance team on like pretty much everything's there, like outstanding commitments, pending change orders, it shouldn't be easy to actually sandbag. We try to think about ways to really make the finance team super aware of all the data that the project manager has, so that these kind of like conversations can happen about why do we actually think that's the cost to completion estimate. And then lastly is just the population of that WIP. So gathering all of these spreadsheets and cost projection reports from the PMs, producing that into like a WIP report, it is hugely manual, right? We've heard that just how much time and hours it takes, like full-time jobs basically, to just maintain and keep this up to date. And obviously the importance of this report, from a revenue recognition point of view, sending this to get bonds, to close credit lines, like it's a really important report, and that's why having it in a digital version in real time with controls is like really important for us. So just jumping in now to the demo, the most important thing to start off with is like, how do we do these integrations? So we are not a system of record. The data we believe should always remain into your ERP. We're a layer that sits above the ERP that moves data back and forth. So in real time, we're pulling information from your ERP. We are never the source of data at the beginning. So we're always pulling that information out and then pushing back anything that's been done in Vergo to update your system. So that means that you're always guaranteed and always can be confident that your ERP is the source of data, is the place that this data is living. We are a workflow tool that sits on top of your ERP that makes the project managers and finance teams' lives extremely easy to do things faster, more efficiently, and more accurately. So I'm now going to dive into the actual dashboard and show you how a project manager can provide cost projections and how the finance team can run their WIP through the Vergo dashboard. So let me jump into the demo. Perfect. So I'm looking at things now from a project manager's perspective. So I've logged in and I am Brian, and Brian is a project manager that's currently working on 4 projects. So these columns that you can see here are customizable to the way that Brian likes to see things. In this case, he's interested in change orders and current estimates and so on, and what percentage is being completed. But every single project manager can customize it the way they want. So Brian comes in and he has to provide his monthly cost projection. you can see here the status. So for each of these projects, he's working on these in draft status. He's actually already sent to his finance team this one, and you can see the date here that was last updated. You can also see the last commentary between the finance team and the project manager. And the way that this works is it's kind of like a workflow. So project manager comes in, he does his cost projections, he submits it to the finance team for review. The finance team comes in, they review it, and if they're happy with it, they'll approve it. If they're not happy with it, they'll request changes, which is what's happened in this case here. So let's jump into the first project here, the Pennsylvania University renovation. So this is where every month when you come in, the project manager can create what we call a snapshot, and that's pulling the latest and greatest information out of the ERP. So any cost to date information, any change order information, any commitment information, everything that they could possibly need to do their cost projections. So I'm going to go in here and show you what that looks like. So immediately on the top, you can see kind of the storytelling of this project. So originally the contract was $10 million with an estimated cost of about $8 million and with a gross profit estimate of 19%. And then the top right, you can see how over time, as they're doing more cost projections, things are changing, right? The gross profit estimate is changing. It's kind of going up and down like a yo-yo at this point. And you can kind of see how the contract amount has been updated, the cost estimate's been updated as well. So going into essentially how the project manager uses the platform, they'll open up this cost projection screen here. And on the left-hand side, you can see that for this project manager and the way that they like to do their cost projections, they're doing estimates on the cost type. However, we can set this up to whatever way you want, cost code level, phase code level. We can get very granular into exactly how you want to provide those projections. So basically what we're seeing here is, what is the budget for this particular cost type? What is the cost to date? How much have we done? And what is the cost of completion estimate that the project manager is providing? Now again, these columns are customizable to how you like to do your cost projections. We can add more information or less information depending on how you do things today. Now, in order to actually make adjustments, we have this table here called adjustments. And what this does, it says that if you wanted to change an estimate and thinking, well, actually it's going to cost more or less than we originally thought, you can go in here and make these adjustments. So in this case, we've made an adjustment and said, labor costs have increased more than we thought. There's overtime that needs to be done. So the project manager can come in here, they can make an adjustment for cost, and they can say labor is going to be more than expected. And they can come in here, they can find labor, and they can change it to $5,000 or whatever. And then they can include that into their projection. And that's going to then update the information above in this cost projections table. And the beauty of this is that it gives the audit trail now for everyone that's looking at this project to see, why are my costs changing over time? Why are we making these decisions to change the cost projections? It no longer lives in spreadsheets and sticky notes or even pieces of paper or WIP meetings. There's that audit trail of exactly what has been changing over time for the project, which our customers love because it means that there is nothing that falls through the cracks. And then you can see down here, we're pulling in basically any change orders related to this project. In this case, we just have an approved change order, but we can also pull in pending change orders, which is obviously really important information because if there's a pending change order that has a 100K cost associated with it, you might want to just include that into your projection. And the same with commitments. If there are open commitments and you know that we have an outstanding $19,000, then let's just include that in the projection. And as you're including it in the projection, these numbers up here are updating. So the idea is that there's always accountability and audit of what exactly is being included into your projections, so that at any time you can go back into the previous versions and always see what's happening. So that's really much about how the cost projections part works for the project manager. So let's go back to this all job section. So as the project manager is submitting these to the finance team for approval, the finance team are coming in and are approving them. this helps both sides of the the workforce look at like, what do we need to do for the rest of the month, like which cost projections are missing, who hasn't done their job. So now if I jump to the kind of admin view, we're going to see what it looks like for the finance team when they come in. So all of a sudden you see there's now not just Brian's jobs, there's actually a lot more people. This is the whole project managers of the company, and you get to see the visibility onto everything. Now this screen is actually now your WIP report. So as you can see on the right hand side, we're pulling in everything that you would expect to see in your Excel version of a WIP. But the beauty of this is that it's being updated in real time as cost projections are coming in. So as you're approving those cost projections from your project management team and they get approved, then all these numbers will update, and that you can trust this as your up-to-date WIP basically. Again, you can download this into Excel if you did need to share it and send it to anyone. But the idea is that you don't necessarily need to work in Excel anymore. The other cool thing about this is that you can, again, customize the columns to how you want. So for example, if you want year-to-date information, you can have those columns added in as well. And yeah, this is basically our cost projections and WIP tool wraps up. And going back to one of the features which solves kind of like the sandbagging thing that we talked about in the presentation, we have this tab called Insights. And what we do is we look back at all your historical data, and we're able to look at the project manager level for things like cost estimates. So how good are they at estimating costs? Historically speaking, in this case, Michael has always estimated fairly accurately to what it ends up being, but Dean is actually pretty bad at estimating. And this means that maybe for Dean's cost projections, either you train that person up and say, hey Dean, like we've gone through the data, you need to estimate better, or you can even go in as a finance team and make adjustments. So to his particular projects, you could come in here and as a finance team, just basically add in a finance team override where you might want to just throw in a 10K or 20K or whatever estimate, whatever adjustment you think is relevant. And this means that, as I mentioned, your master WIP now becomes this very powerful dynamic tool. That means that all the data is coming in, you can see the status of the cost projection, and you can move on. So yeah, jumping back to our presentation. So we've gone through cost projection workflow for project managers, how to make adjustments, that real-time WIP that's then generated, and yeah, the data entry into ERP. Essentially, once you're happy with that WIP, there's a button that you can basically press that pushes all that information into your ERP to update everything. And in terms of the real value that this brings, it's not just about obviously streamlining the project manager's life and making their life easier, but really just reducing the burden on the finance team to get out of those spreadsheets and to really just streamline for the whole team how this process works. So some other modules which we have, which kind of interlink, is our expense management and invoice automation module. We've gone through the cost projections and WIP module, but we also have a forecasting and analytics module, which is in a separate webinar video on our website. Our mission is really to streamline every process which project managers and finance teams are involved in. So from getting job costing data, which is our kind of expense management and invoice automation module, getting that information into the ERP as quickly as possible, and then post that, the reporting, the analytics side of things, so that you can leverage all that data you have, which is much more accurate, and start to do things like analyzing it, forecasting better, and seeing insights for the business owners to ideally make better decisions on future projects that you might bid for and be willing to take on. But in terms of next steps, happy to schedule a personalized demo and learn a bit more about your business. As I mentioned, we integrate with all the major construction ERPs, but we also offer free trials. So if you are interested in moving forwards, we can connect into your ERP free of charge and get everything set up. You can play around with